I know the power of story, and everybody has got a story.
Portland, of all places, there's a lot of tough conversations.
Well, we're going to explore what we can do to make a difference in the community. We're going to hear a lot of opinions and ideas.
The mission of Portland Interview Magazine podcast is to connect. This is the Portland Interview Magazine podcast with your host, David Bentley, on TalkCast PDX.
Hi, Portland. Welcome to Portland Interview Magazine, or for those, welcome back to Portland Interview Magazine. We're excited today. I'm very excited today to have our guest, Pat Daniels, with us with Constructing Hope. And there's a lot to go in today, and I'm not going to give a big parlay at this point on you're going to discover Pat and who she is and what she's doing with the organization, and more importantly, the impact in Portland, considering the state of our city. Well, prior, obviously, she's been busy with this nonprofit, Constructing Hope, but even more so, it's one heck of a solution, I think, moving forward, quite frankly, with more permanency in a lot of the situations we see in Portland within jobs and community and recovery, all these areas. And we're just really excited to have Pat here. And so welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
Anyway, so I didn't give a big intro on terms of the history and things of that nature of Constructing Hope. So can you start with the beginnings, whether it be the idea and where this all came from?
Well, the idea of this program came from Irvington Covenant Church. And at that particular time, I want to say it was 1995, Irvington Covenant Church saw gentrification beginning to happen in Northeast Portland. And through that, they saw there was a lot of African-American men basically selling drugs in the neighborhood. They decided to plant their church there and went out and talked to the people and said, hey, like, what's going on? When they found out that all of the people basically had a felony background and could not find work. So they decided that they would just do some research and found that the construction industry was the one area that did not require a background check and didn't care if you were a felon, then you could come to work for them. So they started to build a ready to work program. And down the road, they were having some financial issues. They invited me to come and help. And that's basically how I got introduced.
So you were introduced in terms of the organization through someone connected you there, or were you aware of them? Okay.
Prior to coming to this program, I worked for Portland International Airport for almost 20 years. And a friend that I work with at Portland International Airport knew that I was not employed at the time and asked me to come and help them with a fundraiser. So I came to join to do a fundraiser and just got to be bossy and just start saying, we need to change this, we need to change that. And they were like, okay, can you join us? And the rest is history. I became the secretary.
Okay.
Yes.
So then,
Always
already, go ahead.
And always underpaid.
Always underpaid. And forgive me on not introducing our special guest as well. We have Dave Dahl tuning in today. He hosts different programs, and he invited me actually to sit today in for him, but he's joining us Zoom. If you are actually looking on video, you'll see him there. And so we're excited to have Dave Dahl here, with formerly known as Dave's Killer Bread. Well, Portland obviously recognizes all the contributions that he's done for many charities. This is one in particular that he does support, and he does it with a big heart in his organization. And so anyway, welcome, Dave. And he'll be commenting on some of this as we go through it. Go ahead, Dave. Did you say something that I didn't catch?
Okay, I just wanted to say that Pat worked for very little money for a long time. I don't know how she's doing now, but she's always done it. It's been a major passion, and that keeps her going, I think.
Yeah, we were laughing that when I started this job, I have a master's in business, and we started at $10 an hour in it was 2005.
Well, organically, it's obviously you were on the right steps as this thing is built, and it's needed more now than ever, in my opinion. So we're going to get into some of those things that you guys are doing as an organization. So, okay, so 2007 approaches. I know there's some key dates here within the organization.
That was a huge time for us. you heard me say we started in 2005. Well, it took us from 2005 to 2007 to find out a ready to work program wasn't moving forward because it didn't have teeth. And when I say teeth, by that, you can create a ready to work program, but your training has to match what the industry needs. So we took 2 years to bring some folks in from the various unions. I want to say the carpenters stepped up to the plate, Northwest College of Construction and IBEW came forward and helped us build a curriculum that we got certified by the Bureau of Labor and Industry to become a pre-apprenticeship training program. The state of Oregon is one of the few states that have certified programs. So that was the change that we made in 2007, which today we're celebrating 15 years as a certified pre-apprenticeship training program.
Well, congratulations. That's a big, to have a certification on that level. That opens some doors, obviously, and with your partner support, obviously those on the way up in more of an aggressive way up at that point.
Right. It was huge because you can train people, but if they're not getting in the trades, then you're not doing your job. And so the whole goal was if we could start with a few people and say, hey, what is it that we need to teach these people or our participants in order for them to get into your trade? And we're serious about it. And that's where we basically came up with our 6 attributes that, one of the things that they really like is they want us to teach skills, the hands-on, but mostly the soft skills. They said soft skills were more important because they would teach the hard skills. And then we talked about work ethics. So our class starts at 6:30 in the morning in the trades. You have to be at work at 6:30. So let's start some of those habits right now so we can make sure that people had good habits. The number one thing at that particular time, they were losing people for not getting to work on time.
Wow.
But you think about when you work in an office opens at 8, you slide in at 8 o'clock. It may be 8:05, but you can't do that on a construction site.
Mm-mm.
It may take you 30 minutes to get to the place where you're actually working. So now you're 45 minutes to an hour late. So teaching culture of the industry and just making sure that they understood safety. So those are the things that we picked up from the trades to say what was really important for us to teach. And the last one is choices, because in the drug industry, in the construction industry, those are federal jobs, and it doesn't matter what's legal right now. Any type of drug is illegal. So marijuana is still considered on a drug. You have to pass a drug test, and you cannot smoke marijuana.
They do have their argument with that, which is reasonable on one hand, because let's face it, you're working with some pretty big equipment. And, marijuana can mellow you out, it can chill you out. And sometimes you can't be chill on some of that equipment. It's dangerous.
You got to be alert.
Yeah. So
Some people
go ahead.
will handle marijuana better than others too,
That's true. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, and to your point, Dave, I know some pretty hyper people. And when they obviously partake, they actually come down to a normal level.
Yeah.
I've known some people that use that. But again, point being, you have to have a rule, and that's a rule. So, today we're going to get into today, but I want to talk a little bit more about the mission in terms of the mission regarding, obviously rebuilding lives, skills, and training in the construction industry. These are life-changing things that you guys are trying to address.
Yes. So, what is amazing is this is the same mission that Irvington Covenant had. We did not change this mission as we changed our name to Constructing Hope, but the mission was about rebuilding lives of people in the community. And we wanted to do that through education and training. So the education component is still there. In 1995, the program was 3 months long. So that was a hardship for the folks going through. As we changed to Constructing Hope, we condensed all that to a 10-week program to make it a little more palatable for people to take 2 months and a couple of weeks to really change your life and make sure that we had all the components in there of safety, of the hands-on training. And then what we added was the component of making sure that we don't just refer people, we actually hand you off to the trade that you're going to go into. So we've been working with you for the 10 weeks, 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We've been working with you diligently for the 12 weeks. You've gotten introduced to many trades. You've chosen one, and then we help make sure that you have all of the skills and certifications to help you successfully apply and enter that trade.
You just you brought something into my mind that you mentioned introducing them to certain traits. Now, take me through that. I'm a person coming in. I've been accepted in the program. I've passed what you've needed me to pass. You're taking me on. Where do I go from there? What are my choices?
Once you come into the class, as part of the class, everyone gets introduced to about 5 to 6 traits. So there is the ongoing math class, there's a life skills class, and then after that, the classes are all around building and being introduced to the trades. So today you might go you'll spend 4 hours at the cement masons. You're going to learn all about the cement masons, and they are going to recruit you. Next day, you're going to go to the carpenters, and you're going to learn all about the carpenters, but you're also getting a hands-on. So you're going to do a hands-on project there, and it's their turn to recruit you. So you get 6 of those, and by the end of the class, you're going to determine which way you're going to go. And that's where we hand you off to that person, because while you're in the training, you're still getting tested on all these things. And for the trade that you're actually going to enter, I want to see a term paper. What do you know about that? Why are you going there? What do you have? What skills are you bringing to that trade? So when we hand you off to this company, you're going to that company with a portfolio of all of your credentials. Everything we've set up is designed for you to go and sell yourself to this organization.
Well, that gives them obviously some choices on either both ends, but as a person coming to you, I do get a sense of choice after I've been exposed through these different trades. I do have a choice of saying, gee, I really am prone to masonry.
Yeah.
And I have a desire there. I've had natural excitement there. And you then from there, are you saying they're actually, those organizations, whether they're a partner or not, are actually trying to get me at that point and recruit me if they like what they see initially?
Yes. What we have a MOU, mutual agreement of understanding. So with that, they have agreed that our curriculum is fitting for them, for people coming in. So part of the agreement is they're looking for diverse candidates. When you look at Constructing Hope, our population, which we didn't talk about, even though we're looking at formerly incarcerated, they're African-American, they're Native American, they're Asian, they're white, they're Hispanic, they're across the board, but most organizations today are looking for diversity. So just because a person have a background, when they come through our program, we're providing the diversity in the trades that they don't have right now.
You speak of diversity, male, female?
Males and females.
Okay.
Now, we are predominantly male.
Okay.
So I would say that in the last few years, we've been averaging about 15% women, but I partner with Oregon Trades Women, who is an organization that does women only. So where there are women that don't necessarily fit in their program, they can come to us, and specifically if they're formerly incarcerated, and our program is designed for low income. So
Okay.
there's benefits that we provide.
Go ahead, Dave.
I think that's important, the partnership with Oregon Trades Women. I think that really, it improves it doubles, more than doubles your impact, because for me, this is a cause more than it is anything else. And, working together is a beautiful thing.
Well, as far as Dave, you introduced a program at Dave's Killer Bread to bring incarcerated people in. You made a real mix of people inside of Dave's Killer Bread for years as you're building that. And I guess what I'm asking is, what was your mix within? You had incarcerated, you had men, women. How did you break that down when you brought in people needing that hand up?
Right. For us, diversity happened naturally. It just kind of organically happened. We didn't go, we're gonna double as a program to do this. We were focused on getting good people, and what we found is just my voice. What we found is that over time, I was successful, and I see other people coming out of prison being successful. Why couldn't others do that too? And it just was the right way to look at it. We ended up with some great people.
Yeah. your voice. Dave's not here today in person because he's at home, and he said it's going to be pretty tough today. So if the audience bears with him,
Staying out of it as much as possible.
yeah, I said, please, Dave, be on the call. And he goes, well, I'll do my best. I mean, but I appreciate it because Dave's so important because of his knowledge and his foresight in terms of what he was bringing to his organization. So bear with Dave, turn up the volume, listen to his words of wisdom when he cuts out for a second there. But so
I want to share something
yeah,
about Dave.
go ahead.
And Dave, I think I've forgotten to tell you this. Dave's Killer Bread was around when Constructing Hope started in 2010. At that particular time, that was one of my number one spots to make sure that people had employment because I knew that they were open. So also going back to 2010, he was on my bucket list of someone to meet. So I just want to say it's amazing how the universe turns around when you're really busy, that I was sending people to go to work there and hoping that one day I would meet him. And then also writing to the foundation, and then down the road now having an opportunity to meet him. He was very famous to me.
Well, Dave, here we're talking like Dave's not listening, but that's
Yes.
okay. Dave, we're going to talk openly here. What I thought was, Dave's always been really for a lot of organizations. Some he jumps up and down on, some Dave's a giver. So David's helped a lot of organizations, but the one that he jumps up and down about, quite frankly, is Constructing Hope because of probably the relatability of what he sees.
It's number one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he has Central City Concern. He's helped. I mean, I don't want to get into the list of what Dave does, but you're like a favorite.
It was actually my connection with Central City Concern that through Billy Anfield, who is my ace deuce there. He runs Flip the Script, which is
that's
helps a lot of mostly African American men get started. So he just one day up and introduced me, knowing how much I cared about that stuff. He introduced me to Pat, and that was all.
Well, let's, if you guys don't mind, because there's so much to go over, I have a lot of questions as well, but I want to get into, we're talking about getting us back to, employment and education, all these things it takes to go out there and get a real job. Let's talk about real wages. Let's get into that because even that's we see the job market currently with what's going on in not just our city, many cities, more help wanted signs all over the place. And even if someone were to go get some of these jobs, even when they pay reasonable, you can't make the rent hardly. And so talk to me about that. What's going on as far as how you addressing that, or how do you guys at Constructing Hope for reasonable wages that can really actually help?
Well, I'm going to tell you, that's where our name Constructing Hope came from. Because when you look at the construction industry, the average journeyman right now, I think the carpenters are making $60 or $65 an hour. That's the carpenters. They're not the higher trade skilled trades. That's not the higher mechanical skilled trades. So when you think about what are the electricians making and the plumbers, so entry level is between $20 and $25 an hour. That's a great, what we consider a livable wage for someone to start. And that's a starting wage. No college degree, coming from pre-apprenticeship directly to work. It's, are you willing to work in the elements? And so to me, that's the living wage. In addition to that, when you think about working in a union job, by the time you become a journeyman, which is almost like a college, this means that you're the expert in that trade. That takes anywhere from 5 to 7 years. You basically have an associate's degree. So I'm going to go back and say, when I started at Irvington Covenant in 2005 for $10 an hour, I had just gotten a master's degree. I owe $160,000 just for my master's. That wasn't for the bachelor's, the associates. So you think about how much you move forward without having that college debt, and you have an associate's degree, and now you have the opportunity to also move into management just by learning on the job.
Yeah, doing the job.
Doing the job.
And your fringe benefit is the long-term what you're getting obviously on long term, like you said, like basically it's an associate's degree, you said.
Yes.
Basically. Yeah, there's something to that. Oh, and you're getting paid along the way.
You're getting
versus
well
college
paid along the way rather than paying out.
and the debt, the debt load. So there's choices. I used to hear about, we are moving. Well, this has to do with manufacturing, but nonetheless, there's a mindset. What I'm trying to bring up is,
Yes.
they're saying, we want to have the tech jobs. We want to have all that. Yes, we do. But how many people want to actually sit at a desk versus get out and get their hands into something and create things, in that business? I know a lot of people, they're like, I'm sick of, they say that sitting is like smoking nowadays in terms of health related. I want to get out and do something creative and not break my back necessarily, but, go out and do something physical. How does that, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I sell it because I think, like you said, sitting at the desk, stress. I have high blood pressure now. I never had high blood pressure before, but in the past I was at a desk. But, I want to say COVID, where we're in these meetings after meeting after meeting, that is way more stressful than getting out and doing something. So at the end of the day, I want to get out and take a walk. I need to get out and do something physical. When you're in construction, I sell it as you got the best of both worlds. You're getting your physical exercise. If you do go and work out, it's just to relieve stress from maybe, you had a heavy schedule today. You started at 6 and you ended at 7 and you had to do some overtime, but mandatory overtime, take that $20 an hour and double that. I think a lot of people didn't mind that overtime. It changed your income. And a lot of times, it's them making the decision that the hardship there is the early hours. The hardship is sometimes the mandatory overtime. But at the end of the day, you have the paycheck to take a vacation to relieve all that stress.
Well, there's been some things that have happened that has affected a lot of things in Portland. We can start with obviously COVID.
Yes.
How did COVID, number one, how did it negatively affect you? And were there positives that came out of it through creativity and pivoting and all the other things one has to do?
The best way I can say it is I just say we fell down, but we had fallen down before. So we were used to falling down, and what is it going to take to get up? When COVID happened in 2019 was just kind of the beginning of it. Constructing Hope had lost all of our staff except one person. We only had a staff of maybe 6 or 7. And with that happening, that's where I want to say Dave was really a lifesaver for us. He donated $100,000 to help us rebuild at that time, because losing all of our staff, it was crazy, because it was like, okay, I'm going to take care of the financials and the other stuff. And I had another employee that's going to take care of the program because he knew it very well. We hired a consultant to help us, just manage the program. So that was big, to meet somebody, a strategist, to help us keep HR and all the reporting and everything else that we needed to have going while we continue to get funds. The good thing was the strategist and the team and the board helped us turn things around in hiring a fund development person so we could get on track with funding. Bringing the staff back on board, because we had to shut the program down and stop classes. When you stop classes, we're paid for training. That also kind of stopped funding. But we were fortunate that a lot of the funders decided to let us move some dollars from training to just overhead to rebuild. So it was wonderful that the community stepped in to support. It gave us an opportunity to completely rebuild. But with new eyes coming in, it also helped us we had to move to a completely virtual platform. So it gave the staff an opportunity to be creative and come right in and use all of their talents to make that happen. And we did it. So we switched everything to a Zoom class. We moved to just some in-person hands-on doing projects in the community, and it worked out. So I want to say thanks a lot to partners.
Well, and thinking about class and adjusting to not just staff, but obviously the people participating in any kind of programs that you're running at the time. How many are you running at the time? I mean, regarding people coming in to get the help and get out there.
And with COVID, I want to say, I think our smallest class was 6, where we had normally, we were running classes of 25. We dropped down to classes of 6, classes of 10. And then I think our average class moved to 15.
Okay.
And
So now, oh, go ahead, Dave.
in a year, those, that's doubles and triples total, right?
Right.
And then you end up with, I find it to be a very nice percentage of success. So
Oh, yes. We've been averaging about 80. But see, this is what pandemic did also. Our last class, we had 125% placement.
Oh, wow.
I know
Okay.
it's like, how does that work? Well, we have 4 classes a year.
Okay.
Our last class is a fall class. Those students graduate in November, and we let them know it's hard to go to work in November, December. It's the end of the year. The weather's bad. The jobs are shutting down.
Holiday.
It's holiday time, and
Yeah.
in winter weather, jobs do get canceled, shut down some, but a lot of them are still working. But that's not a good time to get in because bringing new people in is kind of slow.
Tell me about, because you mentioned something before this, we were chatting a little bit about some of the students and what have you, and some of the graduates. What are some of the challenges? Let's say you get through the program, you're successful, you've targeted a certain type of construction field. Construction has its own waves of busy, not so busy. I mean, it comes and goes. Right now, obviously, it's hard to find people in the trades because everyone's really busy. But what are some of the challenges they might run into, once they're in?
Once they're in, the one thing that we're working on right now is the culture. I want to say in the trades, there's been a culture of predominantly white men. And now we are doing an influx of women and men and people of color.
Mhm.
So the bullying, hazing, and harassing that has been a traditional part of the trades has to change. So now we're focusing more on safe from hate kinds of programs, cultural awareness kinds of programs. I think positive workplace training so that we have to remove those barriers for the people of color that are coming in, and women. That may have been fun a long time ago, but for the folks coming in, that's a lot of mental anguish. And so people choose not to stay because it creates a stressful environment for work.
Hmm. Well, I look at Oregon. We all do, and it's a big white state overall. I mean, if you look at the numbers, right, percentages, but we
Mhm.
have brown, black, and the people of color. Those percentages to make your organization work, you get as many as you can to incorporate in your program. But then there's also white and female, like you'd mentioned, and so is it hard to reach the African American community or people of color? Is it hard to get them to see what the opportunity is sometimes? I look at the conditioning on those folks, and it can create its own negativity on themselves that they can't see. Am I speaking crazy here? Or
No, I can say for some people, they have had, again, we talk about fathers, brothers, and in-laws. They have had people, fathers, brothers, and in-laws, and they've seen the mental anguish that they go through in not getting the work. First one at the work, first one on the job, last one on the job, first one off the job, those kinds of things. And they just decide that this is not an area that I want to go into. But I can say we're changing that today because there are more and more people of color and women that are in positions. We're helping those folks get into leadership positions. And the other thing is, we're talking to them about this. And this is the reason that we have ongoing mentoring. And ongoing mentoring is if they should have a problem on their job, they're called their job developer, and we help them work through those issues with their trade, with their employer, with whomever. And there's lots of training right now on positive workplace training. And there's things like tool talks on the job site where the companies are even talking to and providing positive workplace training for all employees.
You've got some nice plaques up on your website. I did note, and I did take some notes on that. 100 best nonprofits to work for in Oregon is on your website. And so I quite frankly don't know how that's all those lists are put together, but that's obviously great. And GuideStar Platinum Seal of Transparency. So that's, again, I think transparency is always good when you're dealing, whether it be a nonprofits and different businesses. And Charity Navigator. Do you want to speak to any of those?
Well, I can say, the first one was best nonprofits. Constructing Hope's mission speaks for itself. And when you look at our numbers over the years, Dave spoke to the number of people that we put to work. And when you think about, we're a nonprofit that truly means what we say, and we try and do that in every aspect of the word. If you come into our office and meet our staff, you're going to see a rainbow of different nationalities of people, both women and men, who truly love supporting the mission and working with the people. And I think that's the students and the staff and how they feel about working in an organization where, yes, we have strict rules, but my first rule is when you come into the organization, I want you to do things the way we have it currently. After that, you can make change, because everybody has to understand the why. I think the other thing is, I am the leader of a team. I am not the boss. And a lot of times when we're in and I'm talking to the operations manager, I call her the boss. She has money, she's the boss. And as I look at my fund development person, and she's the one who put us in position for all of these accolades,
Right.
she's the boss.
Right. Right. So you have everyone taking their position within running it. That's great. With Portland right now, we see a lot, not just Portland, of course. I always say Portland, but the truth is many, especially West Coast cities, but many cities have a lot going on the sidewalk that is either depressing, looking at poor people in tough situations. And I don't want to get into analyzing all the situations, but we know that there's a lot mixed in there, from drugs to depression to financial situations, people living outside in tents all over the place. What goes through your mind? You're all about trying to, obviously give people their second chance, or just a chance of opportunity. What goes through your mind when you see that? It's got to be tough on you. And at the same time, what would, from your creative mind, what would help in those situations for those folks?
Well, I'm going to tell you a story. When I was growing up, it's my mother's heart. We had a family member who was on drugs. And I have to say, when this particular person came over, I'd be like, ugh, why does she let him in? He stinks up the house. I just don't understand. Well, he was hooked on drugs. But as I looked at him, he was burned as a child. So she helped me to understand everything that he had been through to put him in this place, and how privileged I was. It changed my attitude. So when I see people, the first thing I think is, what happened to you? What happened in your life? And it made me understand the privilege that I had of growing up in a home, even though it was a single mom, but this mother loved us and she did everything for us as well as other people in the community. And there was nobody's situation. She would always say that, you have to understand that everybody doesn't have the same opportunities. And so looking at that, it makes me think about, what can I do to give them that same opportunity that I had? So formerly incarcerated people, they didn't. It was an accident that happened, and you don't punish people for the rest of their lives. So how do you open the door? When we look and see all these homeless people in the United States, we should be ashamed. And when we look at the prison system, it's supposed to be reformed. Have you seen anybody come out reformed? I haven't. And so if this is what we say we're going to do, then somebody has to be on the other end to say that we buried these people so far down that when they come out of prison, there's no way they can rise unless you're in a wealthy family. But if you're already in a low income family, you're just going to sink further in the sinkhole, and it's a revolving door. So some people are so worse on the outside that they kind of look forward to going back, because at least I know how to survive in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it for me. It was like, what can I do? And when I saw this program and I saw how working backwards, because you said, which way do you work? When the people came, then it was up to us to go back and say, unions, what can we do? And non-unions, what can we do to bring somebody that you'll take? And this is how the program was built. They gave us some instructions and we said, okay, here's what we're doing now. How are we doing?
So you reverse engineered. You say, what do you want? And we will do what we can to bring you that.
Yes. And that's how we created these mutual agreements, that when we train people, they will take them. And that's what has grown our program. It's a two-way. If the people fall down, call us. We'll help them get back up.
I have a feeling your mom was a hero to you, and you're building plenty of heroes that come through your program. And I know you don't give yourself all the credit. You're a team.
We're a team.
And it's a team. So, but obviously you're running part of the helm of the team. But who are some standout heroes? Maybe not just always personally to you, but people you'd identify I think you met a gentleman recently. Do you want to speak to that? I mean, I know you met President Biden.
Oh my God.
Did you?
Oh
Okay.
yes. Okay. See,
All
now you
right.
make me change altogether.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. Governor Brown,
Mhm.
Kelly Kupchak from Oregon Tradeswomen set up a lot of meetings for us to support the infrastructure bill with Governor Brown.
Mhm.
Governor Brown has been so by our side in listening to the things that we needed and how we supported the people in our program, that she was instrumental in also connecting us with Congresswoman Bonamici. We've had several meetings with her as well. So Congresswoman Bonamici invited Kelly and I, Kelly is the executive director at Oregon Tradeswomen,
Mhm.
invited us to meet the president on Thursday because we all supported the infrastructure bill. I should not leave out, Constructing Hope is part of a consortium. And so with the consortium, we are partners with Oregon Tradeswomen, Portland Youth Build, and Portland POIC. So all of these organizations were invited to come and meet the president because we supported the infrastructure bill and gave her the information that she needed to help move the bill forward. All of our programs provide support services. We try and support the people through the point where they can be successful in the trades and beyond and move into leadership positions. So that was like the best day of my life. When I got the invitation, I text back like, is this a joke?
Well, good for you. Not everyone got a chance to meet him. And regardless of politics, that infrastructure bill was, I mean, the right and the left likes the idea of rebuilding bridges and fixing things and infrastructure.
Yes.
So it's a kind of a nonpartisan subject, really, when you get into that, except maybe the money and the dollars that one wants to commit versus the other.
Yes.
But the point is, the idea is supported by both parties.
Yes. And when you look at all the infrastructure right now, I just read that there was a demand for like 300,000 people in order to do this work. Where are we going to get those people from and how are they going to get trained?
Boy, we're gonna have to have those mini offices of Constructing Hope all throughout the whole United States. So you have to take your pilot program here that's been successful 30 years. And
that's the goal.
That is
the goal.
Am I moving forward here a little
You're
bit?
moving forward because as I go and visit other places, and when I'm in Houston and Atlanta and just visiting family members, and they're like, oh my God, we wish we could have something like that here. When you think about the number of people who are formerly incarcerated and have skills, and it's not just recently formerly incarcerated, there's people, we have, I think our most recent person was in their 60s, Second Life. And when I first started, I had another young man, 72.
Mm-hmm.
He came through the program and he got a flagging cert and he was flagging. I loved having him in the program because for the other young men, what it taught them is how you have to plan your life. Because he said now he was 72 and with the income that he had, he couldn't afford to live right now. So he had to go back to work. And guess what? He started flagging. He was still in great shape.
Well, there's hope for many through your organization. I wanted to get back into some of your heroes. We did discover one in particular of a meeting, a wonderful meeting that you just mentioned with President Biden. But tell me about some of the people that are standouts. Could be a book you read. I just think that it's always, when I meet someone like yourself that is engaged in community outreach of sorts of helping others, plugging yourself into the organization that you're in, there's more to it than that. There's a path.
When you said books that I read, I want to go back to Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. That to me was a book that I think everyone should read because it was all about becoming who you are, and we don't know who we're going to be. So as you see the guys in the program, that was a really good message for them that it doesn't matter, how crooked or how, we go in and out. As my mom said, you can fall down, but you have to get up.
Mm-hmm.
And so for her becoming, when she talks about the different turns in her life and what made her who she is, well, for me, it's all the things that happen in my life. And for the people coming into the program, regardless of what happened, it's what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
And
it's not always where you've been, where are you going?
Where are you going?
Yeah.
And so Constructing Hope doesn't care about your past. What we want to tell you is we want you to have a bright future. And if you are bummed about having this background, why don't we have an expungement program? Because again, one person we work with, 60 years old, he's ready to retire, but his one thing was he has been a felon all his life. And at this age, he did not want to die as a felon. He just wanted to have his records expunged. That was so far behind him, but it was important that that happens.
I get a lot of lessons out of people's story and their journey. I do. And I don't care who we're talking about. Usually there's a thread in there that's interesting usually to me. That's probably why I've had Portland Interview Magazine, and I've obviously enjoyed meeting interesting people. But I got to tell you, I can meet the person taking the humble job and get something out of it. Usually, once you get to know somebody and how they think and what they find interesting, and I don't know. I think you have to be curious about people to pull things out that we can all learn from, no matter where they're at.
And I do have a couple of heroes.
Yeah, let's hear them.
One is one of my best friends, Donna Hammond. When I was in high school, Donna Hammond and Keith Edwards, both electricians. Donna's a business rep for IBEW. Keith Edwards went on to be African-American people. Donna was one of the first African-American women going into IBEW, trying to get me to do it at that time. Keith Edwards went on to become the international business rep, African-American man to go that far. Those are some of the heroes that helped me build Constructing Hope. And I want to say Michael Birch, who's on my board, because I didn't know the first thing about construction. I just knew people in construction. Dave Dahl is one of my heroes, because I mentioned to you that when I heard about Dave's Killer Bread, I was putting people to work there and I was trying to write a grant there, and he was on my bucket list of someone to meet. And then I say my board members, because they've been there with me for a long time right now to help build this, to really say, this is what the curriculum has to have. Let's make sure that we have the financials right, being there by my side to grow every time we fell down.
There's a lot of stories with a lot of the people that come through your classes and go through your pre-apprentice programs and things like that. I mean, we're doing a podcast here, and it'd be great if you ever would consider doing a podcast with your organization, because it'd be very interesting to hear a lot of those stories. And I think it's empowering to a lot of people to hear where people have come from, especially from humble, and they're giving it all they got to step up.
The stories I can say are so inspiring to the staff. I think that's one thing, that it doesn't matter how hard my day is. I can start at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to 8 or 9 at night and just be exhausted. And then we hear somebody got a job, somebody got I'm rejuvenated. And I think the staff has the same feeling. That's a celebration that we have every time a person
gets a bell ringer. That's a bell ringer. That's cool. Yeah, I bet you that is exactly. And you probably know they're on the right team when you actually see that spark in them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when you say too, I can't forget Hoffman. When I think about the start, when I go back to Irvington Covenant, Adam Bonner was the first person that worked at Hoffman, who I just found out who Hoffman was at that particular time. Hadn't heard of them before. I was at an airport.
That's just a small company.
Yes. And so, to have Hoffman at our door, and to have J.E. Dunn now being one of the huge supporters, I feel like I'm forgetting to name some folks who have just been champions and just been there for this organization.
Go ahead, Dave.
I would say somebody like Jathan Genovi.
Yes. Jathan, my new founded friend, also when we fell down, joined us, has been helping with training and keeping the staff up to speed, getting us back on track. As a matter of fact, we're going to be doing some training with him at the end of the month.
That's awesome. One thing I wanted to note on Dave Dahl, and we've talked about the relatability that he has with your company, and he chooses obviously to want to support your company. And how does someone engage? There's some volunteer stuff, but what about obviously what do you guys look for? Partnerships, all sorts of, explain how someone does get involved with you guys. What are the ways?
Well, the ways that they can get involved is there's opportunities in the classroom. We're always looking for guest speakers in the industry. We have a budgeting class. We're talking about finances. We're talking about sharing your story, just as far as life skills, about what it takes to make the right choices. We have hands-on training. So if there's any retired people who want to teach carpentry, we're doing carpentry, we're doing electrical, we're looking at plumbing. So anybody that wants to come in and help with hands-on training. Right now, it is so expensive for us to pay for a hands-on training instructor. We cannot compete with union wages. I'm sorry. My salary is not at $60 an hour. So
Mhm.
when we look at having to bring in an instructor, we're having to pay journeyman wages.
Yeah.
So anybody that would like to come and volunteer and help with hands-on training, mentoring events, we have ongoing mentoring events every other month. We're going to be bringing those to monthly. And when I talk about mentoring, it's just having discussions. We talk about finance. We talk about first-time home buying. We talk about the culture in the industry and just hearing somebody else's story so that you can help guys maneuver. We look for math tutors. Math is a critical component in our class. We're serious about it. There's a test every week. There's a midterm and a final. So we're serious about making sure that people are prepared and ready. So, if you think about math, everybody's not moving along at the same pace. So we have some great tutors already, but we can always use new ones.
Uh,
And of course, there's funding.
I
well,
also,
yeah. Go ahead,
just,
Dave.
I was just looking at the website today and noticing that there wasn't a volunteer page or something down about it right now, but I'm sure that you can get a hold of it. But there was a nice donation page, and I recommend going. If you're inspired at all by this, and you should be, go give what you can.
Yeah, it does take dollars and cents. It does.
Yes.
And of course, you're a nonprofit.
Yes.
what
And
have
so
you.
the average cost for us about $12,500 per person. And I know when somebody looks at that, they think that's a lot, but you think about that. Everyone that comes into our program is 100% low income. It's not that we decided that. Our program is connected to the employment office. So that's where income is verified before you begin the process of applying. So that
Mhm.
way we're sure while you're there, like I said, we're going to make sure that your union dues are paid. You have the tools, boots, and everything that you need. You're going to have childcare.
I'm going to think outside the box for a second. And this is giving people life skills at this level in the trades, to give them livable wages and to pre-apprentice them, introduce them, support them even afterwards with consulting with your students and what have you. And maybe I'm crazy, but there's dollars being spent all the time through city programs that the city and our tax dollars goes towards. How does that work? How do you get funding from the city for additional funds for this kind of thing? Because you just mentioned some pretty big numbers per person, and I have a feeling you're pretty good with your money and making it go a long ways. But where do you get the city support? I mean, let's get our tax dollars involved, because I see this as very solution oriented thinking and programs, what I'm listening to.
I'm so glad you asked that question. Portland Clean Energy Fund. Portland Clean Energy Fund is a grant that we just received along with our partners in the consortium to look at green training. So they're paying us to basically look at, support our students and support some overhead, but we're looking at how is the new era is green training. What's happening with solar? What's happening with building energy audits and making homes and buildings efficient? That's the new wave. So they're helping support us through funding this way to figure out how does the training happen and what that training is. I would say the other thing is we have a grant through the city of Portland for expungements. They know that the number of people that are incarcerated, and for us, there are large corporations that are federal projects. They still have the old language about if you have a felony background, people can't come to work on those jobs. Well, if you have such a demand for workers, and what I see, these are the best workers. When we're talking about passing drug tests, my guys who are formerly incarcerated, they're all dedicated, want to make a life change, never failed their drug test. So you have an awesome person here. We're talking about a demand for people, and the construction industry is the only one that's got it right as far as making sure that we bring in formerly incarcerated, but we have to have the large corporations remove those barriers when it comes to having a felony background, because they're losing a lot of workforce just because of that. Now I got lost in my question.
No. I want to go back to funding for a second on the
Yes.
funding. is there state grants that you're getting? Because obviously there's federal, state, city grants. There's all these types of grants. I mean, this thing should be funded very well because of the work it's doing and the important work, because you're talking about sustainability. Once you've trained and supported, we're talking about life changing for a lot of people that really didn't have that chance.
Well, I skipped over the infrastructure dollars is going to be coming down from several avenues. This is going to be life-changing for all pre-apprenticeship training program. Those infrastructure dollars are going to allow us to expand our capacity and hopefully double the existing programs. It's also going to bring on some new programs. And this was one of the things that we asked and talked about sincerely, to say, we want to see some new programs, but you have some existing programs that are leading the way. And we're bringing along the newer programs. Trust me, they're calling us for information. So we want to see some new programs, but we also want you to, don't forget to put the dollars into the existing program so that we can build capacity to build out and support the new ones. So I think Constructing Hope is looking to move our dial from 25 students to hopefully next year 45. We're not going to try and grow too fast. We got to make sure that we can support that number of students and have the space capacity to do it.
Now, maybe I'm getting into nonprofit kind of conversation, but still, sometimes they marry in the middle at times. They assist each other, nonprofits versus profits. Headhunting. There's big organizations that make a lot of money by placement. Are you getting any benefit from any of the companies? I realize they're creating a resource for training, and I understand they're doing their part with some of your partnerships. I get that. But when in fact they take someone in, I know that headhunters there's quite a business built in finding the right people to fit in your company that people have money to pay. How does that work with you guys?
Well, that's where we would need funds to pay for that. That's not basically in our HR budget. Our HR budget is pretty small.
Okay.
Right now, we're looking at hiring a company to come in, because having 10 people, HR is myself, the operations manager, and the fund development person. And that's not a good place when we only have 10 people. So at this point, we're bringing in an HR company. But this is where we're talking about building capacity, that we need the funds to make that leap, to build the staff, to have an HR company come in, because we have enough staff that we have to look at work planning. And in order to keep the staff has to have room to grow and training.
Yeah.
So we could use a lot of help in that area, because even though we've been around and we're celebrating 15 years, we're still basically in an infancy stage.
Well, listen, we'll wrap it up for now, but today we've been with Pat, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I always have a lot of questions. I think that it's very solution-oriented kind of nonprofit that obviously deserves anybody's support that wants to support something that has more of a sustainability in terms of not that there isn't programs on the handout level that aren't important. There are, but this is all about really taking somebody and changing their lives.
It gets you. It gets your heart.
Yeah, it is. And so anyway, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully there's I know I learned a couple things for sure talking with Pat, and it inspires me to have these kinds of conversations, and especially with results. It's
Speaking
great.
of results,
Yes.
I'd like to leave with one last thing.
Okay.
We talked about the pandemic, and I want to just say again, with the pandemic, we had 125% placement. We placed the current class in 2021 and the class that graduated in 2020.
Well, all the success to you, Pat. This has been great. I appreciate it. Pat Daniels, thank you for being with us with Constructing Hope. And Dave Dahl, thanks for tuning in and keeping your voice with us the best you can, and getting those comments in, because he understands us quite well. And I appreciate
I thought it was good. Good. You guys did a great job.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, thank you.